Hello everyone, I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Bianca.
And welcome back to the Pre-Service PodSquad Podcast.
So today we are joined by NJREA President, Joan Wright. And for those of you who don't know what NJREA is, it's the New Jersey Retired Educators Association. And just like the Aspiring Educators Association, retired is just a different membership category here at NJEA. And we are joined by their fabulous president, Ms. Joan Wright. We're very excited for today's episode. Joan, do you want to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about
First of all, it's a pleasure to be invited to be with extended family. It's so good to be with you both. Yeah. And it's a pleasure to be here to explain a little bit more about NJREA and why it's important for us to all link up and stay united together. Mm-hmm.
Great. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? We talk a lot on this podcast about, our teaching journeys, what the future looks like, our careers. Can you tell us a little bit about what your teaching journey looked like? Maybe how you got into education too?
Been blessed. I've been absolutely blessed. My first teaching assignment was 60 years ago today, just about. I started teaching in 1964 at a very super school in New York City. It was one of the 2 top elementary schools. It was my first grade teacher who got me the position.
Aww.
Who knew?
Who knew? Full circle.
Yep. I was a block away from Gracie Mansion. So it was known as the Silk Stocking District. Really, really very wealthy. And then we had some kids bust in from Harlem. It was the first year that they did that, first year busing. And here I was, first day, fourth graders, all over the classroom. And I thought, college did not prepare me for this. Not for this first day. So you newbies who are getting ready to go into the classroom, have no fear. Who knew? My first class, I looked up. I don't know if you probably wouldn't remember, but some folks who are watching might know Jerry Mulligan, the famous musician. His son was in my class. And the father had just married Sandy Dennis, who was one of the big-time actresses at that time. I also had the granddaughter of the man who owned the Oak Room at the Plaza Hotel, and he also owned the Fontainebleau in Florida. So Biggie's in the classroom, and here's Joan, neophyte, at the front desk, watching everybody just go bonkers. But that was day one. I did survive.
Okay.
So many years later. Teaching was absolutely the very best, I taught there for a year and a half. I taught in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. And then we moved to New Jersey and I came out to Piscataway. And I taught for 2 weeks. And then there was a strike. Yeah, can you imagine? They closed all the schools. Now, I was from New York City. Under Al Shanker, who was the big United Federation of Teachers. He was the president at that time. Very powerful. It was a very powerful union. And I had just left 3 strikes where the entire New York City, all 5 boroughs were shut down. And one of them was for almost 2 weeks. 2 months. So now I'm here in Piscataway, suburbia. Do I cross the picket line or not? I'm just still a relatively new teacher. But I figured just the right thing to do, and I did not cross the line. And 2 weeks later, a parent had written me up, and she thought, this is not New York, and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, more antagonistic feelings. So I just gave the letter to the principal, and I said, well, you deal with this. I'm here to teach the kids. So I went back in, and 2 weeks later, they were looking for a faculty rep for the building. Well, of course, nobody said anything, so I'll do it. And that was the beginning. of my activism in NJEA in New Jersey. Okay. Spent 50 years, well, almost 50 years doing teaching. In the last 5 years, I was president of Piscataway Township Education Association. Never wanted to leave the classroom. Loved teaching, but duty calls when you least expect it. So, and then after retirement, I went to my first Middlesex retired luncheon, and I was approached to be president. I said, but wait, I just got here. I'm newly retired. They said, but we've heard about you, blah, blah, blah. So I left the meeting as president of Middlesex Retired.
Wow.
And then I served for a while, and then they said, well, you're ready for the state executive office. So I said, oh, yeah, well, all right. And then I won and started my elevation to president. I love being retired, and I love my position. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's such a nice story. You are so strong. All that, I love the way that you story tell too. When you first started teaching, what was it like being in the classroom? What kind of supports did you have, or how were your students? I know you spoke a little bit about who your students were, but what was it kind of like for you being in that classroom?
Survival by the grit of my teeth. Okay. Imagine a New York City school, a square block. Half of it was for the School of the Deaf, and half of it was for our elementary school from K to 6. And I was on the 4th floor, massive building, and very little support because everybody was so busy. We had almost 30 kids in a classroom, and it was like survival. And if I did need the principal, well, that was the terrible year because she was always going to the dentist to get her teeth fixed. So,
oh no.
Survival.
Mm-hmm.
You just pray a lot and think positively. And for any pre-service person who, anybody who's thinking about going into education, I just want to say, you need patience. Learn how to count to 12. 10's not enough. And know that you're going to survive. And don't go into teaching unless you really love working with kids. And don't go into education unless you're ready for almost a battle every day. And it's not so much with the students, but with all the politics that goes on. Sometimes you have to just listen, go to your classroom, close the door, and know what you're there for, to teach the students. And some days it's not so easy because some kids you just don't know what they've left at home. The morning, the night before, have they eaten? Have they slept? Were they in a good environment? And sometimes they just come to school just to breathe. If you can make them feel respected, confident, and that somebody kind of cares for them. I know there were several teachers that demanded respect. Do you remember being at the other side of the desk as a student, and you knew pretty much whether you were going to survive that year or not?
100%.
Really. So you have to be, and as I said, don't go into education unless you are that person who's going to show respect in order to get respect. Show that you care, and your kids will care for you. I remember one time I was coming back from lunch, and they said, Joan, you better get back to your classroom right away because 2 kids got in and they're fighting. They're throwing desks and whatnot. And I ran up and I could hear one boy say, Nobody talks about Mrs. Wright like that. I'll get you. And chairs and stuff were flying, and I thought, no, wait a minute. Wait, I didn't do all this to get to this, but if they care about you, they'll work harder. And this was a young man who he was doing his second round in 6th grade. And I don't know, to me, he just hadn't been given enough chances. Terrible background, long story, but he knew I cared. And he's almost 60 years old now, and we're still in contact. Mm-hmm. Love Facebook. Love Facebook so much that, I could go on forever. One young man who I taught in 6th grade in 1968 found me. And we've been on Facebook ever since. And we've gotten together. But can you imagine? From 6th grade. Yeah. So that's why I say I've been blessed. I've been blessed.
That's very powerful, and that's an attest to you as a person and the connection that you created with them. For them to want to reach out to you after all those years, they still thought about you and the impact you made. So, and it goes back to what you were talking about, showing that you care, and ultimately just like putting aside the politics that you were mentioning and maybe other issues that come up in the school environment that can take you away from the reason that you're there, which is to educate the kids and be there for the kids.
Social, emotional learning. I still have that. I did see SEL.
Yes.
It's coming back again.
Yeah.
I was one of the test classrooms with, I forgot his name, the professor from Rutgers who started it. And test classroom in Piscataway. And it took time, and the kids adapted to it. But I'll never forget, there was one little boy who was he was fighting all the time. And another girl was the arch nemesis. Oh my gosh, they just did not get along. And then one day I noticed that he went up to her and he said something, and then they both sat down. So I went to him and I said, well, what happened? He said, well, I really wanted to punch her in the face, but I realized the steps that we've been going through. And he said, I realized I didn't want to grow up to be like my father, who was always beating on my mother. And I realized it had to stop. So I went through the steps that we've been going through in school. Who knew? But that was a transference of something that we had been studying. Made a difference. The things that go on in a classroom are just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I envy both of you for going in to education. You have to have heart. You have to have endurance. And as I said, you have to know how to count to 12. You need the extra 2 points. Mm-hmm. But what a reward. What a reward. And when you think over 50 years, almost 50 years, and I've had about 250 that I came across every year, that's quite an impact. And I am just thoroughly grateful that I chose this career. And that's why anytime anybody, has a question, or I do give out my phone number all over. And rightly so, because I want people to call. I want to be able to share whatever I've experienced and what have you. So I loved it. I still love it. And that's why I'm an NJREA.
Even like the amount of people that you've touched, it's greater than 250 people, but
per year, for all those years. Yeah.
Even you just remembering all of those stories is something that adds so much meaning to life. I feel like when you start thinking about the amount of people that you've had a direct impact on.
You never know.
Powerful.
You never know who you teach and how deeply. And I just went to a jazz brunch on Saturday, and I met several of my former students.
No way, really?
Yes, well, I meet them all over.
Oh.
And she came up and she said she remembered how much time I had taken with her. I didn't even realize. I the time and effort that you impart into the students, and you never realize how much they remember, and it had an impact on them. Yeah. And even now, I just say, as a retiree, we retired from our positions, but not our vocation. It still continues. Yeah.
And speaking of that, obviously you're the president of the NJREA, and so we wanted to ask you, like, what are some issues that you're continuing to advocate for now? Like, obviously your work has continued, and you're retired, but you're still continuing all of your work, right?
Every day.
So what are the things that you guys are working on?
Well, first of all, it's really important for retirees to join NJREA because, well, I always tell them, you have home insurance, you have car insurance. You need to get insurance on your retirement. Because if you ever have a question or any query, you call us. And if you're not a member, if you call NJEA and you're not a member, we'll kindly give you the number of department fill in the blank, and we'll pray for you. Because you'll be on with the department for an hour and a half. You can clean, the kitchen, scrub floors, whatever. And if they give you the right answer. But we will be there to solve a lot of your problems. Pension, health benefits, what have you. But when I mention pension and benefits for our retirees, and even for you in pre-service, years ago, it was Governor Florio who said, I can't afford to pay teachers what they really deserve. I mean, because we teach the future. So what we will do is we will set up a pension and free health benefits in retirement. That sounded good. And of course, back then, nobody thought about retirement. We were just doing it every day. But now we come to a crisis because with Governor Christie, when he came in, he tried to change everything. And you might as well say deep six, the pension system. Because we're at a point now, well, I know even we have retirees who don't believe that the pension payments are not guaranteed. All the years that they've been working, and people will say, oh, but they promised us. Mm-hmm. Well, if there's no more money, and I'm fighting for you guys as well, if there's no more money, who's going to get what? Mm-hmm. The pension system is now at about 45%. And with Christie making all these new laws and regulations, it cut people off at the knees. When I retired, it was 55 years old, and 25 years in, you could retire and get the benefits. Now, and that was tier 1. Now there are 4 and 5 tiers where people are paying into what they think is a pension, but it's not our pension, into another fund, and they won't get the same pension that we're getting. There are more in tiers 4 and 5 than there are in tier 1. I have gone around to local schools, like during lunchtime, and speaking during their lunchtimes, and letting them know about the financial situation for retirees and the rest of us. And a lot of folks teaching don't even realize that what tier they're in. Mm-hmm. They don't realize what's at the other end, that it's not going to be for them like it was for us. So we're at 45% funded. We have health benefits, platinum, top-notch health benefits. Well, we have 2 people in the pool now who are running for governor who have already said that they're not putting any money into the pension fund right away. Well, if we don't have anybody putting money in, that's going to just dissipate. Forget it. Thanks to Governor Murphy these last few years, because nothing was put in before, or very little, he put in $7.2 billion with a B to fund the pension system. Now, if we get somebody after Murphy, and that's the next election, who's not going to put any money in, well, it doesn't bode well for any of us. So the two who have said that they're not going to, and one now, ever since I've been going up and down the state, because I heard him say this 2 or 3 years ago, this one person, and let me remind people, he almost won in the last election. Murphy beat him out by 3 points. This man could get in again. He could get in. He could also not, as I said, fund the pension. Well, now I've had people go to, and I've suggested that they go to town hall meetings, find out about the delegates. Do not vote like our parents used to, straight down Republican, Democrat, whatever, independent. We have to all be astute as to who we're going to vote for, because now we have different interests. Our children have interests. Family have interests that must be adhered to. So now I hear that one candidate is saying, oh no, I never said that. Believe me, I know others who have heard it. Call me, I'll give you my number, and I'll tell you who it is, but I don't want to use names. But we're at a point now where there's little or no pension. I mean, there's no guarantee. And the people have come to me and said, well, Joan, they'll find money from somewhere. No. The governor can take a pen and put one red line, black line, a line through health benefits and saying it's too costly. You don't have it. You won't get it. And if they don't put money into the pension, you don't have pension money. So I have told folks up and down the state that I have told my son and daughter, unless you get actively involved in this next gubernatorial election, you two are going to have to decide who mommy is coming to live with. Okay. They go, what do I have to do? Where do we sign? Because it's reality. Mm-hmm. And I still have people calling up, where is our cost of living allowance? We used to get a cost of living. Well, you haven't had it since Christie got in, because that was another thing. If you don't have, you have to have at least 85% in the pension fund in order to honor a COLA. Well, we need to spend our time talking about keeping a pension, because as I said, 45%, that's way away from 85%. And that's why, again, we have been on the road campaigning for Sean Spiller for our next governor, because he has the experience. He is our NJEA President, and he has the experience. He has worked with Governor Murphy and closely, and the powers that be. So he knows where the money is. He knows all about all these different problems that educators have had in the state, only because of political reasons and hateful reasons, rather than educational, rather than to get what was promised, mm-hmm. and to uplift and upgrade the things that our education in New Jersey needs. Yes, we've been in the top 3 for the longest time. And we can't thank the educators and the ESP, educators across the board, who have invested their time and effort. And what do? Look at the poor ESP. They used to be in, they're still in our association, but coverage, they don't have the coverage anymore because hours were cut, and therefore you don't have the hours, you don't get the pension benefits. Or if you don't have health benefits, you're not in the pension. So now they're in some other DCRP, I believe they call it, which is pennies, which is practically nothing. And you have educators who are out working every single day in the classroom, the ESPs, you driving buses, the cooks, everybody across the board working unbelievable hours and sometimes really horrible circumstances. And what do we have to reward them? It's not what it used to be. And that's why Joan Wright, NJREA President, and all the officers and the executive committee, and we're trying to garner as many members as possible to get the word out. And also I must let you know too that because this is so important, we have been setting up Zooms with various, well, we're doing all the states now, where we're alerting all NJREA members of the financial and political things that are going on in the state so that they are aware, and that we do have some resolution in trying to elect Sean Spiller as our next governor to help education in New Jersey. We have these Zooms to alert our members of what's going on, because if they don't come back, they have friends and relatives who vote. It is that important. And it is that important for our retirees, the regular workers, as well as pre-service. We are all in this together. And especially, that's why we want to reaffirm the unity that we have and include pre-service as much as possible in the fight for the future. You are our future. And that's why we want to encourage you and be there for you, because just as we experienced good times and good results, we want that to happen for you. Most definitely.
I noticed that, like, when I go into classrooms and if I present about pre-service and just, our organization, a lot of times aspiring educators don't really know about, the pension justice campaign, or they don't really know what's going on with the pension system. So sometimes I feel like that's not as fruitful of a discussion just for like my short 10-minute presentation. But it really begs the question of maybe we're not really forward-minded enough.
Yes.
Where, even now, even though, we have a long time before we retire, we still
You blink
need
your
to,
eyes, because I had no idea that at 81 years old I would still be in the education game. Okay, yeah. For real. And back in the day, in 1964, when we got out of college, we were going to be teachers, and we would teach until we had a family, and we'd stay home and take care of the family. But times changed. Things changed. And that's why we want to make a firm resolve in including our whole being with pre-service so that we can help guide you, lead you, be with you as you step into this vocation. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of us just went into it. But now you need help. You need guidance. You need inspiration. And 2 pills, 2 aspirins. Yeah,
it's important. Yeah. We need to be working together.
And we will. Yes, definitely.
And especially more like education for our pre-service members who are looking to go into the field and are not yet aware of this pension system that is awaiting them, and why it's so important to think about, even if it's your first year teaching or whatever.
Exactly. And it really is. We knew about it when it finally did come with Governor Florio, and we were happy. But then you're happy and you go back to the classroom and you continue working. Who thinks about retirement until you're ready for retirement? But now we have to be mindful of so many different things, and that's why, again, we want to link up with pre-service, because you need the assistance even more than we did. You need the encouragement more than we did. There are more politics floating around, hitting us in the head than when we started. And it's important to be mindful so that we're aware, and so that we can be proactive rather than reactive.
Yes.
Yeah. So I put this invitation out now to one and all that for pre-service, if they're looking for inspiration and information, call upon us, and that's why we're going to link up. And we will be going around, just as I'm doing from local to local and county to county with the word, with the politics, with the updates, because a lot of people just don't know. And people in the classroom are so busy trying to do everything they're supposed to do. And as I said, they're in tiers 4 and 5 and don't even know. I asked one, well, what tier are you in? And she was going to quote me a figure from the salary guide. And I thought, oh, we have work to do.
We're both in tier 5, and I'm sure most aspiring educators are. So it's
and maybe we should explain now. I mentioned 55-25 for tier 1, but 4 and 5, you guys have to work until you're 65 years old. And for what? So just as we've been telling the youth now, learn to save your money, because the other end comes much too quickly. And before you know it, I guess we'll all be working until I'm 90 years old. Not because we want to, because it's necessary in order to put bread and butter on the table. And that's what I tell folks now. It's not politics anymore. It's bread and butter. It's putting food on the table. It's paying for, if not a mortgage, rent. Where are you going to get that money from if those checks stop coming? Health benefits, you can't touch it. And this one guy who said he's not going to put money into the pension fund, he also told about coming up with a gold plan because ours was too expensive. We don't want any other plan but what we have. And our retiree plan is just excellent. Excellent. So we want your years to be glory years as well. Most definitely. Yeah.
We definitely have started sharing some information about the pension system to our membership category, but I know it can be difficult for everyone to understand, and
Sure.
It's very hard to think about that when we haven't even entered the profession yet. So
You haven't gotten your first paycheck?
yeah, we've started sharing, but I don't
Yeah.
know, to what extent everyone understands, but I know you were talking about how the state of the pension system is very dependent on the upcoming gubernatorial election. So what are some ways, I know you talked about how you're involved in Sean Spiller's campaign a little
Most
bit, so
definitely.
what are some ways that aspiring educators can become involved in the campaign as well?
Through your association and with our implementation of different programs and being more evident with NJEA and pre-service, signing up for various coffee clutches, meet and greets, pizza parties, whatever. We have to get people to know what the heck is going on. Bottom line. And if they do, they will do. But as I said, we've been going from pillar to post and people go, I didn't know. I mean, or I don't believe it. And then we have to go into deeper, well then check this out, check this site out, but unless we make people aware, how will they know? So we're going to have to, reading, writing, and arithmetic, getting out there and getting the story shared among as many as possible. Yeah. And we're even we're getting a flyer together where independents, so they'll be able to vote in the primary, what to do in order just to change up and be ready for the primary. That's why we started so early. The knowledge, the interest, why it's important, and get ready for the primary. And we're collecting as much money for the campaign as possible so we can get the word out. Right now, we're doing that, but in addition, we're campaigning for the presidential election. And we're not going so much, again, for party as with the retirees. Consider who is going to save your Medicare and your Social Security. Two biggies for retirees and for anybody else. And, with Project 2025, read it, see what it is, because it affects all of us in some manner or not. So the next 2 elections are definitely biggies. And we've been campaigning for the presidential, but we also have to keep in mind the gubernatorial, because that hits us in our pocketbook. That's our educational system. That's our future. That's your future. And your future is our future. Yeah. So
Definitely, especially I think it's a good reminder for aspiring educators when we vote, this year and next year for governor, this year for president, next year for governor, is really thinking about which candidates, putting aside this party, that party,
that's
this
right.
party.
Forget the parties.
Who is supporting public education or education in general? Let's just put it at that.
Yes.
Of like who is going to make sure that they're here for teachers or just educational support professionals, all people working in the educational field. And it's something that when we go to the ballots or get the mail-in ballot, you really sit down and consider that and make decisions.
And I always suggest mail-in ballots because nowadays people are so busy and you never know what your schedule is going to be on election day. If somebody gets sick, if something comes up and you don't make it in time, that's one vote that hasn't been cast. So that's why I tell folks, please, mail-in ballots. You have the ballot in your hand. You can do it today, tomorrow, but beyond that, you're going to get that in because the vote is that important. Mm-hmm. And it's something for our youth to see, that we take things seriously.
Yeah.
So, and I remember we used to have even voting in the classroom, so voting for whatever, but how important it is to vote, to have a chip in the game, so to speak. Yeah.
Like practicing those skills in the classroom, I think is important.
Exactly.
It's like mirroring things that are outside of the learning space of using democratic process. I know we talk about that a lot in our classes.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a misconception of people saying, well, why should I vote? It doesn't really count. It's just one vote, but that's certainly not true. And if you're modeling being a civically engaged citizen in the classroom, then that can definitely help when someone is eligible to vote.
Yeah, how often did somebody get in by 3 votes, 2 votes? That could have been your vote, things are too important nowadays.
Very close now, too.
Very much so. So every person counts, every vote counts, because we have too much that's on the table that has to be decided.
What would you say to folks who want to abstain from voting because they don't feel as though they really reside in either camp? Like for this upcoming election, and even when we consider the governor election, like when they don't really like the candidates who are being, who are
then you're not doing, you're really not doing your civic duty. And then you have no right after an election to say, well, I didn't do this and he didn't do this, that, and the other. You have no right because you did not participate. And we as citizens have a moral obligation. We have a duty. Mm-hmm. You can't complain if you're not part of the game.
That's a good saying.
You have to be in it. Yeah, you have to be in it to win it. Everybody has a stake, and if you let something go, then you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem, and we have enough problems. I know there are some folks that I have spoken to. Oh, Joan, it's just a mess, Well, no, it really isn't. There must be something that you're looking for of the candidates that far outweighs the other. You have to take a stand. You have to, for your friends, for your family. If not for yourself, for your family, the extended family. Do you have kids in the family? Do you have oldsters in the family? There are people that you have to consider beyond yourself. It is important that you take a stand, and you take a stand by filling in that box. Be it push a button, a lever, whatever. You have to participate. Or else I won't speak to you ever again in life.
You are way too kind for that. I don't know if you would ever do that, but
trying to keep it clean.
We will definitely do at least some sort of collaboration with pre-service.
Oh, definitely.
I know we're like trying to do some kind of like mentorship program.
Yep,
or something.
that's in the works.
So we will figure something out. Because we like you said, we need something that bridges that gap between
that unifies us all.
Yeah. Between Aspiring Ed, between in-service teachers, between retired educators, we all need to be working together. Because otherwise, if only
we need
one,
that link. Yeah, and it wasn't so much that you could see before, but now with every passing day, it's more and more important. We definitely need each other. And one needs more than we all need each other. It's because now it's a combined effort.
And I'm sure once we more firmly establish that relationship, we'll be sharing a lot of mentorship and advice. We did just have sort of one question to wrap up the episode with you. We were looking to see, what you thought was the single most important thing that an educator can do in today's classroom. Obviously, you said at the beginning of the show that you've been in education now for 60 years, so I'm sure you've seen and experienced a lot. So what's sort of the one most important thing that an educator can do?
Have patience. You're bombarded with so much more than we ever were. And when I think of all the strikes that I went through and going out, there was one strike, Ocean Hill, Brownsville in Brooklyn, and they shut down all the boroughs. I think that was the one for about 2 months. Read up on that. I think it was 1968. And we teachers took to the streets and went into communities because we no longer wanted the Board of Education to have all the power. We went into the communities and knocked on doors to get people to sign up to become community activists for the schools. So, patience, stick-to-itiveness, and a lot of times when politics, and they keep changing the requirements for educators. Well, we're going to have this for the next testing, and we're going to set this up, and blah, blah, blah. Just don't get upset. Listen, and then go to your classroom and close the door and teach the kids. Give them your best, and they in turn will give you their best. That's all education is about. We're there to educate the kids. And sometimes they educate us, but it shouldn't have to create as much turmoil in places that it does. Have patience. Show respect to get respect. Show love, and they'll love you, and they'll do anything for you. And I mean, kids who weren't supposed to succeed. I know I had some who, I had a program at the after school where they could do homework. And some would just want to stay after school, not because their parents worked, but because they wanted to spend extra time in school, help with homework, or just to be with an adult that cared. Because God only knows what they went home to. So, you all face a great many slings of the arrow during the day. But know it's well worth it. When you put in the time and the effort and the love, it comes back to you 1,000-fold. Yeah. So, hang in there. As I say, stick-to-itiveness. And I'll give you my number.
It's that, yes. I know that that's true. For anybody listening, that is so true. Anytime that I call Joan, she's like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Mama Joan. Like, it's really, it's like, it feels like family.
And the number is 908-307-6769.
Everybody grab pen and paper.
I did my time, and I'm going to help you with yours, because the rewards, I could cry. They have been plentiful. I just thank the good Lord. I never knew, especially after that first day with all those fourth graders jumping all around the room, that I would survive and have such rewards. I kind of envy you both, because the best is yet to come.
I hope so. It's a rising sun on the horizon.
Yeah.
But I love what you said. One phrase came to mind from like just readings that I've done in class. It's like pedagogy of love. And I think that's exactly what we need to do in our future classrooms, is realize that sometimes getting through the content and like making sure that your lesson goes successfully is not the first priority.
That's not the epitome, no.
Yeah, it's really showing your students love. And thank you for all of your kind words.
Oh, most definitely.
This was a wonderful episode, and we love hearing your stories, and it's
a pleasure. You're taking me back.
It is so nice to have you on our podcast, and we will definitely collaborate in the future.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. This is the first of many.
That 908 number.
The continuation, I should say, because it's not the first. Continuation of good times. And for anybody who is watching and you're interested in education, please don't get into education unless you really love working with kids and you have a strong attitude about what you want to do and how you want to get there and how you want your kids to succeed. God bless you all, and thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you so much, Joan. You had such a powerful and beautiful message. I know we enjoyed it, and I'm sure all of our audience members did too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. To everyone watching, be sure to join us for our episode next Thursday. And yes, thank you once again, Joan. Have a happy Thursday, everybody.
Bye.